Hey guys, so I'm making this tutorial to show how to make decent looking rivers in Worldpainter. I'm just currently making some terrain in the background whilst I'm gonna explain what the video is really gonna be about. So the real important thing to take away from this video is two more mechanical kind of things, and there's a few little bits and pieces I'll be throwing in whilst I go along. So the most important thing is making the rivers work in 1.12 and up, seeing as the blocks aren't automatically gonna flow. I'm gonna show that later on, so I'll get back to you then. I'll first just let this play. Alright, so next up here I went into Minecraft and I'm gonna pick out a few blocks, so I skipped that part of the video, but you'll see me working on it here. What I wanted to do is create some sort of terrain like the White Cliffs of Doven. So I picked diorite and concrete powder to basically do that job. I used it below a certain amount of degrees to figure out where I wanted to put it all and to make it look good. So you see me playing around with that right now. And in a minute you're gonna see the effect that it has. I actually ended up testing it in Minecraft, taking a look at how it looked. I felt it looking decent, so I didn't really change anything else on it. Though halfway through I'm pretty sure I might have changed the degrees a bit, but I'm not sure anymore. So here I actually tested it out, it looked decent, so now this is very important. So what I did here is create a water layer. So you see me getting it right there. Now this, it's not a layer, it's actually a material. You get it. You'll make sure you change the thickness into the minus. You need to go minus because you want the water to dig into your terrain. And then you want to take a width that is at least more than the thickness, otherwise you're going to get very steep terrain or steep rivers, which you might want. You might want a really strong steep river, in which case you want the width less than the thickness, but I recommend the width a lot, at least like around double the thickness. Now I've played around with it a few times in the video. I changed it around a bit, so you might see me change it a bit. And also I ended up feeling like the rivers were way too thick, so I ended up making them a little bit smaller and I changed it a bit. It's something you really gotta get a feel for, and I personally haven't really played it around enough with it to really know what's the best. But I feel like you want a brush that is around half the size of your width, maybe just a tiny bit more. And I used a brush that was like double the size of my width, which didn't really work out. Now you see me here making a river, or at least sand, that is curling around, or it's like flowing from left to right, which is very important. Rivers tend to do this, and the older the river, the bigger the curves. So if you really want to make good looking rivers, like look up that video on how rivers are formed. It's very entertaining and actually it's very helpful in creating stuff like this. Something else I did, which is very important, is to make every step at least lower than the next, because if something is suddenly going up in your terrain, in your river, it's going to look very odd. Now you see me making it, blending it a little bit into the water, which I ended up removing in the end because I didn't think it looked good. Now I'm exporting a portion of the map. Alright, now in Minecraft I'm flowing over it just to see how it looks. Now you see it's way too wide, and it's also way too steep. So I go back into Worldpainter, smooth it out a bit first, and then next up I'm actually gonna change this a bit. Like I said before, I've played around with the settings a bit. I'm currently myself still figuring a lot of things out, but I wanted to get this video out because I felt like it worked pretty well in the end. I actually in between tested it again in Minecraft, and I decided to just scrape away some of the sides, which is not bad, seeing as you want to do that in the end anyway, or at least you want to create sand pads on inside the curves, which you see me do in a minute as well. Alright, so here I did another export, went to the game, just thick. Look at it. It looks a lot better already. I still personally think it's not the best looking river you could make, and I personally would like to make it a little bit smaller. But if you want a bigger river, it clearly does work. Now something you might notice is the steepness of the block. It's something I'll go into later. Now first I'll add up adding sand to the inside of the curves. So basically how it works, wherever the curve is, you gotta see it as a straight line, and where it curves now, it used to have sand on the other side, so it's moving sand around. So you want the sand to be in the inside of the curve, and you don't really want sand on the outside. Maybe just a bit, like it's starting to take more shape again and again. Rivers take shape over like hundreds of thousands of years, so you gotta keep that in mind. And like I said, the older the river, the more curvy it is. Now I didn't make this come from any real hill, but yeah, back in game. Here you see me just have a look at the water, and something I wanted to show again is the steepness. It just drops off. I'm pretty sure I'll show that in a second here. Yeah, here you go. So it's just a one block gap basically. So what it is, the problem is the water doesn't update. Like you see, Minecraft, it says it's a fluid, or it's, yeah, the fluid version is, or setting is off, meaning it doesn't flow and it won't just update out of itself. So if you update it, it ends up flowing into place, which doesn't always work perfectly, but yeah. So to fix that, what you gotta do, I put this schematic in the description, but you can also do it for yourself. I went back into 1.12 to use world edit properly. So I've just made sure all these blocks are water, just to be safe. I copied this area, saved the schematic, so I only copied the top area, saved the schematic, and I'm gonna load that back into Worldpainter. So now back into Worldpainter, I add a custom object layer, and I'll add the water flow schematic, like you see here. Now make sure to copy this correctly, or you're gonna not make it work. Alright, so you gotta edit this. First you gotta get the offset right. So it's supposed to be -1, because you want it on the same layer as the water is created, which is in the minus. So you turn off random rotation, doesn't really do anything. Make sure it spawns on air, it collides with any block, and only does something if the object block is solid. I think I turned this on just because I had it in my other test version. I'm not sure if it's actually necessary. I just did it for safety. So you might not need to remove or replace water with air, but I did it to be safe. Now you put this over the entire river or water layer you created, and that way it should actually work. So here back in game, as you see, now it's a lot smoother. There's here a problem. I ended up fixing that in the end. I'll tell you how I did that in a second. But there are a few problems with this. As you might see on the right and left side, there are a few areas where the water flows over the terrain on the spots where you might not want it. So you could either just remove that yourself, seeing as those sites shouldn't cause any blocks to update, or you might need to spend a little bit more time in Worldpainter to figure out how to get rid of it. Now as you see, if you update the water, it will again start filling in the holes, but as long as you don't really touch it, it stays this way. Now I'm also gonna show you a little thing you could do as well. If you don't want it to overflow on the side, which is the problem I had, you can create this and copy the top of this. The only problem is you're gonna get a lot of sharp edges instead of the smoother, more clean edges. So you could try either one. I personally prefer this because it just looks a little bit better. Having said that, the other one does cause less problems for you. Alright. So now I'm just basically gonna paint in the rest of the terrain, make it look a little bit better, you know, for the final cinematic kind of view. Now something important, I had that weird water glitch. The way I removed it, like when it flowed into the river, the way I removed it is to make sure that your water layer is allowed to be the same as the river, or is allowed to go to the ocean, and just one above that. and then you have your water flow layer, which has to be above one layer above that as well. Because if you have that on the same layer as the ocean, it's gonna intervene with the ocean, so you gotta keep that in mind. So my ocean layer level is I believe 39 right now, so I made sure, no, it's 40, so I made sure the water flow doesn't spawn on layer 40. That's something you gotta keep in mind. Now I took a few custom trees from one of my own packs. It's actually on Planet Minecraft. I'll put a link into the description, and here's the end result. Now I do believe the river is still too wide, but what you gonna do? So there are a few things you can still add to make rivers more realistic. There's often rivers that end up splitting apart towards the end, so when it starts getting to the ocean, which is something cool you can do. You gotta keep in mind though, if you want to make a river that's less wide than this, you gotta create a new river with a new number to keep them apart, you know. Seeing as if you use this river for a smaller brush, it's gonna get a lot steeper, which is probably something you don't want, so keep that in mind. Now another thing is I might be making other tutorials. I'm planning actually on creating a version 2 for this tutorial, where I show how to make waterfalls with a similar technique as this. So if you want that, please let me know, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a nice day.